So I hope my AC in my car isn't too loud. It's hot as fuck out right now. It's probably my least favorite part of the year. Well, spring's my least favorite because I get allergies sometimes, but I just hate that it's like cold in the morning and then it gets hot in the evening. I don't know, it just irritates me. But anyway, that's unrelated. No, I just passed this guy. There's this guy who sits outside of my apartment complex, and he just sits on a lawn chair in the parking lot next to the dumpster for like hours on end. I think he goes out there to smoke, but he's out there all the time. He's like an actual NPC. like I feel like he's gonna give me a quest someday if I go up and talk to him. You know, and it's just like, do you have nothing better to do? Yeah, it's just weird to me. Like, I get it, you know, like it's over, you're defeated, but I don't know, like go play a game or something. Just sits, there's not even like a view. It's just a parking lot. But anyway, I was thinking about how, you know, I've been alone for really all my life. I've never really had a lot of friends. When I was I've always like almost had a normal life up until my adulthood, at least. Like when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, it always felt like it would be possible for me to live a normal social life, and that I was just so close to it, but couldn't quite get it. Like I remember in middle school, I had a couple of friends who I was really close with and I'd hang out with. I mean, literally just like 2 or 3. And I remember there was this group of kids who were literally known as like the popular kids or the cool kids. And I always wanted to hang out with them so bad. And eventually I thought I had made friends with one of them. And they would let me, like, they wouldn't even let me sit at their table. They would let me sit at the table next to their table. And, like, they would just make fun of me the whole time, and they'd make me do shit. Like, the one kid would be like, oh, Marcus, you gotta go. He'd get done eating, and he'd be like, you gotta go throw out my tray for me. You know, and essentially I was, like, their punching bag. And I didn't realize it because I was so enamored with the idea of being friends with them because, you know, they did all the cool shit and all the girls liked them. And I thought that, you know, I could be one of them. And it was funny. It was almost like a movie moment. I had this one friend who, you know, was also not very popular like me. As in I also, like me and him were both not very popular. We were at a school dance, and like I was trying to hang out with the cool kids, so I was like standing in their group, and they were all standing in a circle, and they let me stand in their circle, and I was so happy. And then my friend was like, he was looking at me, he was trying to hang out with me the whole time, and I was ignoring him, you know, just being a fucking complete piece of shit, really. But I mean, it was middle school. Not going to hold it too much against myself, but, you know, I was being a really shitty person. Just completely switched up on him the moment I had an opportunity to move up. And he, like, kept trying to, like, joke around with me and stuff, and I was, like, not laughing at his jokes. And then he saw me in their little circle, and he was like, are you serious, Marcus? And I just, like, think I might have just shrugged my shoulders or something. Like, I don't know, I was just trying to be... I didn't want to be a loser anymore, you know. And I mean, this kid wasn't. As he grew up, I saw he wasn't a good person, but I mean, he was my friend, and I didn't. It's not like I, in the moment, was thinking, oh, you know, he's kind of a piece of shit in some ways, because he was kind of a bully. You know, he'd bully other kids. There was like a couple of kids lower than us on the totem pole. We were the second lowest on the totem pole, and he'd bully them. And but, you know, in that moment at the dance, I wasn't thinking, oh, this guy sucks, so I'm doing this because of that. I was just thinking, I'll fucking stab my friend in the back to be popular, I guess, or I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I guess I wasn't thinking I was gonna stab him in the back completely or anything. I was just thinking like we can still be friends, but I also want to be friends with them. But then I was also being scummy because I was ignoring him to hang out with them. You know. And then I remember in high school, I went to a different school district. I moved in 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I remember going to this new school district because, well, like the way that it worked was my mother worked at the school district that I went to for elementary school and for middle school up to 8th grade. And so I went to that school, but we lived in a different town. So, and there was always some controversy, I guess. I don't know. Like, my mother's not the most reliable source of information, but according to her, there was some controversy about me still going to the district that she worked at. Sometimes she would just randomly tell me things to worry me, so I don't know if she'd make it sound like, oh, you're going to have to switch schools. And, like, I don't know if she was just saying that to worry me, because she used to just randomly, during summer break, she did this, like, every summer break. She'd go, Marcus, you know, you didn't do that well in school this year. You're going to have to go to summer school. And I'd get all freaked out. And then she'd go, I know some people, though. I'll pull some strings. And even if I passed, she would say that. And I did pass every time, really. Like, there were a couple classes, maybe, or, like, subjects in different like, semesters that maybe I didn't pass, but then I would pass for the whole year. Because you could not pass for a certain semester, but then you could end up still passing the year. And I always passed the year, but she would just say that to me to, like, fuck with me and, like, threaten me, I guess. But, you know, I guess according to her, though, there was some controversy about me still going to the school she worked at. But I knew I always had an option to change schools if I wanted to. And things were so bad in middle school with kids making fun of me and just that, really, just not having, you know, I had a couple friends, like I said, but I got made fun of a lot, that I wanted to switch. And I really, when I switched schools, I was like, I'm going to try my hardest to be like a cool kid now. Hold on, I need a sip of my water. Nice warm water that's been in my car all day. But I went into that school like, okay, I'm really going to be confident now, and I'm going to try to dress a little better. You know, I pressured my mom to buy me, like, popular brands. I think I even, you know, because all the kids back then, they were wearing, like, Aeropostale and Hollister. Those were the popular brands. And in 7th grade, when I was still in that old school, I like, really pressured my mom to buy me some clothes from Aeropostale, and then I did. And I think kids made fun of me for that, too. You know, I didn't realize yet that if you're getting bullied, you really can't do anything. Like, there's nothing you can do to make people not bully you. You can't appease them. They're making fun of you because of you, not because of really anything you do. It's just they find reasons in anything you do to make fun of you. So even when I started dressing like the popular kids, they were like, oh, what are you trying to be like us now? Or they'd be like, oh, that Aeropostale shirt is gay. You know, like, not this one. But, you know, like, going to this new school, I was like, they don't know who I am, so I can just try to dress like the popular kids, and I can try to be confident and talk to girls and stuff. And it felt like it was working at first, you know. I remember I had my first kiss in 8th grade, and I got in a fist fight in gym and I was so afraid of fighting. You know, even in middle school, like in, you know, 6th and 7th grade in that old school, you know, this little kid, I mean, not like a little, he was my age, but like he was a small kid. He like threatened to fight me one time, and I was so nervous. You know, he was like I remember, okay, like there was this one kid who used to bully me all the time, and his house got burned down. And I was so sick of him. It was like everything I said, he would make fun of me, and he would have some little quip about. and everyone would laugh. And I was so fucking mad at him that I said something like, well, at least my house didn't burn down. You know, like I know it's a really shitty thing to say, but I was just so fed up, you know? I just kind of snapped on him because I was so fucking mad. Like, it was everything I said he would fucking make fun of me for. He would insult me in some way, turn it into a joke, and then everyone would laugh at me. And so I said that to him, and I think like silenced the group of people who were around. Like, everyone just kind of went quiet. But that was one of the reasons I ended up moving, because after I said that just gave everyone license to bully me more, because they were like, oh, Marcus he's a bad person. So, you know, now it's like they don't even have to, if they had any bit of a guilty conscience before about bullying me, now that was long out of the window, and it's like, you know, anything goes now. We can just do and say whatever we want because he just said that horrible thing. And this fucking small little kid comes up to me and he's like, and again, he was my age, but I'm just saying he was small in size. And he's like, Marcus, did you say that you were glad Hunter's house got burned down? And I was like, I don't know, I might have just been like nervously wanting to lie, but then going like, yeah. Then he goes, how would you like it if I punched you in the face right now? You know? And I was so afraid of him. And looking back, I was also afraid of getting in trouble. That was another thing. Like, I would have gotten in so much trouble. My mom used to tell me, like, if somebody hits you, you have to let them hit you like 3 times before you hit them back. And looking back, I'm like, I would have gotten knocked out, like 3 free shots to the head before you hit back. That's so fucking dumb. You know, and I would have gotten grounded for like a month. But I wish I would have just done it anyway. But, you know, a month seems like forever when you're a kid. And they always made it sound like I'd get in so much trouble. Like, my parents used to threaten to take everything out of my room, including my mattress. And they'd be like, well, you know, we can make it so you only eat bread and water. Do you want that to happen? So, like, they'd always threaten me with, like, these crazy things. And so I was so afraid of ever getting in any trouble that I just let people treat me like shit all the time. But then when I got into 8th grade, I was like, no matter what, I'm not taking any bullshit from anyone. And I was in gym class, and this really big kid, he's running around, and he was like going up to people going like, what would you do if I punched you in the chest right now? And then when they hesitated to answer, he'd punch them in the chest. And he was doing his rounds, and he came up to me, and he was about to say it, and I was like, fuck, because this dude was fucking huge, and he was clearly, you know, antisocial. He was clear, like, I mean, people use antisocial to mean, like, not sociable, but I mean, like, he had, like, conduct disorder or something, you know, he's like a little sociopath. And, so, he said it to me, and I was like, I have to stand up for myself here. And so he goes, what would you do if I punched you in the chest right now? And I quickly answered, I'd put you in the fucking hospital. And then he goes, I was really skinny back then. He was like, I'd snap you like a fucking toothpick. And then I don't remember what I said, but after that, this one kid started going back and forth. And it's funny because this kid who was instigating ended up going on the Maury show later in his life. But I mean, that's unrelated. I just think it's funny. But this kid started going back and forth between me and the big kid. His name was Aaron. The big kid's name was Aaron. And he'd be like, yo, Aaron was just talking shit about you. And then he'd go up to Aaron and go, Marcus was just talking shit about you. And, you know, he just ended up instigating it to where he was like, Aaron said he wants to meet you in the locker room after gym class. And I was like, all right, I'll fucking be there. And I was so scared. I was always scared of fighting, but, you know, even that small kid, I was afraid of him. And now I got this he was taller than me. He was like really fat, and he's violent. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fucking die. And, you know, so we get into the gym locker room, and everyone's standing around us, and he's like standing in front of me, and he's like, so what, like, you want to get the first punch? And I was like so nervous. I was, out of politeness, I was like, oh no, I think you can. And he took off his glasses, and then he didn't even punch me. He like he started pushing me, and he like pushed me against the wall. And I was like, fuck, well, I guess I'm doing this now. I guess I'm fighting him. And so I punched him in the face as hard as I could. And he was so strong. He like threw me down. And then I fell to my knees. And then I got up back onto my feet. And he still hadn't punched me. And so I started punching him in the stomach. And then he like either pushed me against, there was like a bench behind me. And then a little space between a wall. And he either pushed me or people started breaking it up. But I just remember I like fell behind that, and I think I hit him one more time in the face before that. And it's funny, at one point one of the gym teachers walked back and saw this big crowd, and I was so afraid of getting in trouble. He's like, what's going on back there? And we were just like, oh, we're just playing around. He's like, okay. And then he walks away, and then we continued the fight. But after that, I feel like I like right after the fight, I felt really lucky that I didn't get hurt because he was so much bigger than me and he never punched me. And so I was like kind of satisfied with it. I didn't like that I had fallen, that he'd like thrown me around a bit. But I was like, okay, I punched him a few times. I knew the punches to the stomach, he was so fat that I thought like, okay, that's not going to do anything, but it'll look good. I was worried like I need to look like I'm fighting to everyone who's watching. And, right after I like sat down on one of the benches, and this kid comes up to me and he's like, if anyone asks, you won that fight. And I was like so relieved to hear that, because I wanted word to get out that I wasn't, that no one was going to fuck with me, like that I was willing to fight someone. Because in middle school, that really held me back, the fact that I was so afraid of fighting. So I wanted people to know, like, okay, like if you fuck with Marcus, like he'll actually defend himself. He'll stand up for himself. And, that kid actually, Aaron, the big kid who I fought, he ended up coming up to me and he was like, I was so nervous he was going to hit me or something. And he was like, that was a good fight. And he like dapped me up. And then we ended up being friends a little while after that. It was funny. I like taught him what empathy was. In our senior year of high school, he was walking around with a thumbtack between his fingers, and he'd be like, yo, high five. And he'd high five people and then stab them in the hand. And I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, it's funny. And I was just like, what would you do if someone did that to you? How would you feel about it? And he was like, I'd be really pissed off. And I was like, yeah, that's how they feel when you do that to them. And he was like, he literally goes like, oh shit, I never thought about it like that. I mean, this dude was fucking crazy. I remember one time he was like, so Marcus, like, what do you do? And I was like, I mean, I don't know, I just like play video games, I guess. And he's like, yeah, but like, do you do pills? Like, do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you do shrooms? And I was like, not really. Like, I guess I drink a little bit sometimes. I'll smoke weed with one of my friends. And he's like, yeah, but like, what's your vice? And I was like, I don't think I have one. And he goes, that's crazy. And this was like 11th, maybe 10th grade was when he said that. So this kid was crazy. But, after that fight, I thought that after that fight and after I had gotten my first kiss, I felt like I was on my way to be a normie finally. But, I ended up just kind of getting found out. That it always, like, that might be a weird way to put it, but that's how it felt, after a while. Because I thought I was acting so differently. And then I was starting to see some success. But then eventually people would just be like, oh, Marcus is so weird, he's so awkward. And they'd start, like, making fun of me again. And so then in 9th grade, I just kind of, I think I was more angry in 9th grade, and I'd kind of talk more shit to people. I wouldn't go out of my way to, but I just had this mentality, like, if someone talks any shit to me, I'm just going to say the meanest possible thing I can back just to get them to fuck off. And that worked. I'm surprised I didn't get in another fight, because I was really, like, I'd go hard on people. And, but even then, like, I still couldn't get a girlfriend. Like, I wasn't making any friends. I'm not saying, like, even then as if, being mean was going to make me have more friends. But I mean, like, trying to be more of a normie and having a little success in 8th grade and trying to make, different, positive changes. I still, like, things just kept going wrong and things kept not working out. And I could give a lot of examples. I'll probably tell different stories in different videos. I'm driving to go get groceries right now, and I'm almost at the store, so I don't want this video to be too much longer. But yeah, I just and then in 10th grade, I really didn't talk to anyone that whole year. In 9th grade, I had a bunch of people I knew who were in my lunch period, but 10th grade, that wasn't the case, so I was just kind of alone the whole time, and so I just never really talked to anyone. And then 11th and 12th grade, I started to make some more friends, but even those, they didn't seem like real friendships, a lot of them. I think a lot of it was I had a car before most people, and so I would just drive people around, and then they would just kind of let me hang out with them, and I don't know, it was weird. It seemed like they were my friends. I was in a group chat with them, and we'd all laugh together and had a good time, but they would never hit me up to hang out. I would always have to hit one of them up, And with girls, I definitely had a couple opportunities in high school that I completely squandered. I had this one girl who lived near me who liked me, and I never went with her because I was mad at her for something she did. What she did was, that girl that I had a first kiss with, I thought I was going to start dating her, or at least, have sex with her. And then the girl who lived near me liked me, so she ruined that for me, and I was mad at her over it. And then later on, I started talking to some other girl that she knew, the girl who lived near me, and I'll just call her I'll refer to her as my neighbor from now on, just so it's quicker. But I started talking to this other girl, and then my neighbor ended up telling that girl to pretend that she liked me, and then blow it all up in my face, essentially. Lead me on for a while and then be like, you really thought that I'd be into you, and make fun of me and shit. And so after that, I was like, fuck her, And maybe I shouldn't have, because she was cute and she lived near me, and it would have been so easy. But yeah. And then there was another girl who would literally tell me that I should lose my virginity to her, but I just wasn't attracted to her. And I still had hope that I could be a normie, so I was even now I probably still wouldn't do that if I wasn't attracted to a girl, because I don't even really care that much about sex at this point. But I don't know, maybe I should have done that. No, go ahead. Sorry, I was letting somebody in front of me walk in front of my car. Oh my gosh, it's going to be brutal. Everyone and their mother's coming out of the store right now. I gotta wait forever. I don't have space right now. But, there were just a few opportunities that I kind of squandered in high school. But at the same time, it's not like it was a lot of opportunities, It's not like I was killing it. And, then after high school, it's funny, when I was in high school, I remember thinking, okay, I'm 15, I'm 16, and I'm still a virgin, when am I going to lose my virginity, and, how old is too old? And I'd imagine, for some reason, I kept imagining the number 22. I'd be like, if I make it to 22, hold on. Someone's walking real close to my car. I feel self-conscious now talking about this. It's pretty hot, too. I was like, if I make it to, 21, 22 years old, and I'm still a virgin, it's fucking over. I'm a fucking complete failure, and I'm 27, and I've never been in a relationship or anything. And, I was in, a sort of relationship. I was in, an online relationship when I was, 12 or 13. That sounds like I was being catfished. And, it's funny, I was really worried about... I was always reluctant to go too far with this girl because I thought I might be getting catfished, but then I learned later that I wasn't, and that she was hot, we're the same age. I looked up her Facebook later, and I was like, fuck, she's hot. I should have kept in touch with her, And then what else? Who else was I thinking of? Oh yeah, and then I had like a sort of girlfriend in 8th grade, but it kind of didn't go anywhere. I kind of fucked that up too. Just being nervous. A lot of it is just being nervous. It's just like being self-conscious, being worried about what others are going to think about me, or being worried about creeping a girl out, or being nervous about fucking things up. But then even then, like when I'd actually try, like I remember there was this one girl in 8th grade who I'd see her in the hallway all the time, and I was like, she is so hot. And then some girl messaged me on Facebook randomly, like trying to chat me up. And then I learned, and I ignored her because I was like, I don't know, I guess I was just like, I don't know who she is. I just felt sussed out, or I don't know what it was. But then I learned that it was that girl. And I was like, what? No fucking way. And so I messaged her back, and we were like flirting a bit. And then I saw her in the hallway, and it was like a fucking movie, dude. I felt like I had made it. I was like, this is it. This is the moment where I become normal. And I saw her, and she was wearing a white dress, and it was like picturesque. It was like a fucking movie. I felt like I was in like a coming of age movie. And she's like all smiling to see me. And then that was like the peak. That was it. After that, it's like just the way that I am, my fucking autism, or I don't know if I have autism, but I think I definitely have traits. Just whatever idiosyncrasies I have, just completely, it just fizzled out, and she didn't want to talk to me after a while. And that was that. And that's kind of how it always went, Like I was always too nervous, or I was too weird, or whatever. And even if I thought I was being normal, people would still think I was weird. And that's carried on into my adult life. Like I'll think, I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video, but like I remember like my one of my friends had moved into an apartment with like 4 other roommates who I didn't know, and I had went to visit him at one point, and I met his roommates. We were all hanging out in the basement, and I thought I was doing fine. I felt good about it. I felt like I was just being one of the guys, just hanging out, making jokes, whatever. And then like a couple years down the line, that friend was like, do you remember when you met all my old roommates? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, when you left, they were like, that kid was so fucking weird. And I was like, what did I even do? And that's how it's always been. And then after high school, I just kind of, I don't know, I've kind of given up a bit. Like I don't really try to talk to girls, and over the years it's just gotten more and more like I've gotten more and more okay with being alone. It barely bothers me anymore. I found that like every once in a great while I'll like get triggered, to use a bad word for it, because I know triggered is like a politically loaded term, but like the feelings get triggered, they get sparked, where all of a sudden I'm like, I get really sad about being alone, and I'm thinking, I've never had a girlfriend. I'm fucking 27. I'm such a loser. And then it'll bother me, I'll think about how, like, love is essentially gone. Like, that romantic love, like, I'm never having that, because, I'd have to date, like, a young girl. Like, I'd have to date, like, a 20-year-old. And even then, it's probably, like, I'm never going to have that high school, like, kind of innocent learning about love for the first time with someone type of love, because any girl I get with is already going to have been in a relationship, already going to have been in a few relationships. And girls aren't even really like that anymore, I don't think. At least like women in their 20s, they're more cynical and jaded now. And yeah, it's like, not that girls even like me now. At least in middle school and high school, I had my hair, I was skinnier, I was just better looking. And now it's just over. Like now I'm bald, and I have acne, and I always had acne, but it's even worse now that I'm an adult. And I always get acne on my forehead, and I can't cover it with hair now, so it's just over. And I think women's standards have gone up too since, Tinder and everything. Tinder only came around in like my junior year of high school. But yeah, like I I just think, like, even if I got in a relationship, there would be none of that, like, romantic love, I don't think. You know, especially now that I'm in my late 20s, it'd be a girl who's fucking... I'm getting close to that point where the only girls my age would be, you know, women who have been married and, like, have a kid who are trying to settle now, you know? Like, they fucked Chad throughout all their 20s, now they're hitting the wall. And now they're like, okay, I'm gonna settle down for a fucking beta bucks to, you know, fund my fucking Uber Eats forever. And I just don't want that, you know, and I've gotten more okay with being alone. And I'm just coming around to accepting it. And even kind of looking forward to it, honestly. There's part of me, I still have like a tiny bit, like a tiny little sliver of hope that maybe, you know, I'll end up living something more like a normal life. And I'm not even really interested in friends at this point. You know, I found that I'm going to make a video about this, like talking more about it, but I found I don't click with pretty much anyone. You know, I've realized that I get along with most people. Like, I can, like, if I'm, like, you know, working with someone, if I'm in a position where I'll be around someone a lot, whether it's like family or working with someone, I can get along just fine, but I don't really click with anyone. There's pretty much no one I meet who I'm like, oh, I really want to be friends with this person and hang out with them. And, you know, part of it is just that I've become so comfortable being by myself that it would just, you know, like, being around others feels like work. It feels like effort. Even if I like it to some degree, like, I moved to a new town and I'm closer to my grandparents and I'm around them a lot more. And I do like it, but there's always part of me that's like, man, I just want to go home now, you know? Even though I'm enjoying being around them a lot, after a while I'm like, all right, I want to get out of here. You know, I like being by myself. And so for someone, and I have so little time to myself now that I'm working, that, and even before that though, it's like, it felt like it was never enough. And so for me to, like, stop my usual routine of what I do when I'm just alone and I have all the time to myself and be around someone else, it would take, like, we need to be, like, a good match, you know? And that's for friends. Like, for a relationship, like living with a girl, seeing them all the time, like, that would take a lot. And there's part of me, like, I still think on some level, you know, I should try to live a normal life. You know, if it's, I have this mentality of, like, if everyone else does something, then you should probably do it too. Because, you know, that's what people do then. That's what, you know, if society, if, you know, biology, whatever is dictated that this is how people behave, then you really ought to behave like that. Unless you have a really good reason not to, because that seems to be how people, you know, are successful in the world. Like, socially, this is what you do to live a good life and be happy. And so if you don't do that, then the odds are, since most people do it, that you won't be happy. But you know, I'm starting to think maybe I'm just different in this way now, just because of how life has turned out with me. I've just adapted. And so, you know, even though there's a part of me that's like, oh, I should really try to be normal, I also think, like, man, I'm excited at the idea of just fully giving up and being like, I don't fucking care anymore. And, you know, like, my grandfather was, like, he has this cabin. It's like a very small cabin. He has a bunch of land. And I was thinking, you know, I could live in a cabin like this. I was just hanging out in it one day and I was like, I could live in a cabin like this just in the woods. If it had a bathroom and, you know, a kitchen. I was like, if I could just have something, just a small little cabin, it's like the size of a living room in a small house. Like, that would be enough for me, and just get away from people. You know, I'd be fine with that. And I'm getting to the point where I'm just so content with being by myself that I'm like, this is just what I'm going to be. Like, I don't see how anything changes. I don't see, like, if I try to talk to a girl, you know, like, there's this girl who lives in the same apartment as me, and I see her sometimes, and I'll just try to, like, be polite and say hi, and she'll just kind of give me the cold shoulder. And it's not just her, like, that happens all the time. If I'm not working with someone, you know, I've found that, like, the only time where people, especially women, are nice to me is if I'm in a position where they don't feel threatened at all with me trying to ask them out. So it's like the only people who are nice to me are like, or women rather, well, especially women actually, maybe not rather, because, you know, I've had a lot of, you know, men a lot of the times can be kind of rude and give me the cold shoulder too when I'm trying to be friends. But, you know, a lot of the times, especially with women, it's like if they're like a professor at school, you know, they're being paid to talk to me, or it's like a family member, or it's a coworker, and even then there's like a little bit of like a barrier with a coworker, because like maybe I'll still ask them out, they don't know, but at least it's like a little less threatening than if I'm, you know, if I don't have any like obligation for us to be speaking at all and I'm talking to them, then it's like, oh, he just wants to talk to me now, and so I get the cold shoulder. And I just don't, you know, especially with Tinder and whatever it's called, like, it's not polygamy, hypergamy, you know, like just people not being in relationships anymore, just sleeping around, and women trying to only sleep with like the top 1% of guys. And you know how many like fucking matches they get on Tinder? It's just over for me. Like, I don't see how it changes. You know, and I used to think like, oh, when I move to this small town, I'll meet some girl at church. You know, I used to be like that. I used to say that not too long ago. And but you know, they're all the same. Like, women are all the same in that way, I think. You know, there's not like even the girl who grew up in like a religious family and she went to church and she has, you know, more traditional values. Like, she has those values because her family has those values. You know, she still wants Chad. You know, she still wants to do what every other girl's doing. And, you know, there's no, like, special type of girl that's different from all the other ones who is also going to want, like, a fucking bald, acne-ridden, autistic guy. You know, like, that's ridiculous. Like, even if she has, like, actually traditional values or whatever, and she's not just trying to sleep around and she actually wants to settle down and have a long-term relationship. She wants to have a long-term relationship with fucking Henry Cavill. You know what I mean? It's just maybe she wants Christian Henry Cavill or something, you know, or fucking traditional Henry Cavill, but she still wants him. So and it's like I'm 27, you know, and I don't really plan on living super long. Like, I want to die in like my early 70s, I think. Just because I feel like once you get into your 80s, like, you have all these health problems and you can start to get Alzheimer's, and I don't even want to deal with that. I want to, you know, like, my grandfather on my dad's side died when he was like 73, and he died working on his house, you know, and like, I think that's the best way to go. You know, you're 70, you've already done the major things you're going to do in life. You know, your life has happened at that point, and he felt good enough that day to go work on his house. He felt able-bodied enough to do, like, you know, or like, not construction, but like handyman shit. And then he just had a heart attack and was out. You know, that's the way to go to me. So I'm 30 years old, almost. I'm 27. I'm pretty much halfway there. I don't want to spend, especially the rest of my youngish years in my 30s, you know, wanting to do something that's unrealistic, wanting to be someone who I can't be. I just want to fucking settle in and just go, you know what, I'm gonna count my blessings, I'm gonna acknowledge what I have, and I'm gonna try to enjoy it, you know. And yeah, because like, hope can be a curse. They really can. And at a certain point, if you can find, and you know, it's never gonna be totally okay to me. You know, there's always going to be times where I just see like a happy couple, or I, you know, see like a bunch of friends and I go, fuck, like, why me? Like, why couldn't I have had that? You know, what everyone else has. But, you know, I have found that I, at least for the most part, have been able to settle in more and more and be more and more content. And so I think I'm about at that point where I'm ready to just do that. But yeah, anyway, that's probably about it for this one.